to the HBCU podcast. I'm Tommy. I'll be joined by some awesome HBCU grads in the form of co-hosts and guests for this podcast. Just so you know, the HBCU podcast comes from our love for historically Black colleges and universities. Here, we'll talk about the news, share colorful commentary, and have conversations with HBCU alumni.
Wait till you hear this podcast. Wait till you hear this podcast. Let it be. That used to be the song. God, it used to be the song. That used to be what was up. Never get enough, never get enough. Hey, never get enough. Woo. Hey y'all.
Hi!
It's us. We're back for another episode of the HBCU podcast.
How are you guys doing? I'm so glad to be in the number one more time. Amen.
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 Yes.
And amen again.
We are here. We are here. Hoping everybody is having a fabulous week or had a fabulous week, wrapping up.
Yes.
Happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday.
Got past hump day.
Kind of Friday Eve.
Yes. And I'm hoping y'all doing well. Keep holding it in the road, as people like to say.
Yes, hold it in the road, honey. We are almost there.
So welcome to the HBCU podcast. I'm Tasha.
And I'm Tommy.
And we're excited to be bringing you guys some more content yet again. So, friend, what have you been up to like this past week, past weekend? What's new?
Nothing. I just been kind of chilling. I'm preserving all of my energy for homecoming in a few weeks.
For the best homecoming.
Yes, for the best homecoming / family reunion.
That's right.
I don't care what FAMU says.
We don't care what anybody says.
Yes.
G-Ho, what is that greatest homecoming of all time?
On earth.
On earth. That's what the folks at A&T say. They claim. You know, that's unsubstantiated claims, They're false claims. How do you know that?
Right.
You've never been to Orangeburg, baby.
Right. You ain't never turned up with CU.
You never party with us.
We do a little movement. We're not as big as the other schools, but, I do need to preserve my energy because we think that we are in college still when we return for homecoming, and the struggle is so real. Yeah, the struggle is real, and I feel very...
Let's take a little moment out to talk about the recovery time, because I want to talk about... Okay, so I ain't that old. I already told y'all on the podcast I'm 33. Birthday coming up soon. I'm accepting all gifts, so you can shoot us
donations,
anything on the HBCU podcast. I take Cash App, PayPal.
Yeah, I'm about to say we're on Cash App. Yeah, just
it's coming up in December, but anyway, I digress. But yeah, it's a little hard to get my life back together come Monday. Even when I haven't done the most, like I'm usually there, doing alumni stuff. And I do still get time to kick it with all the friends and such. However, recovery time is still rough because it's all day, every day. I start on Thursday, Friday, early morning, go all through that day. Saturday, early morning, go all through that day. Sunday, early morning. While some people are getting a little teensy bit of rest, I'm up at the service and the breakfast and all that jazz. But the good thing is I only live a skip and a hop away from the Berg, so it's an easy, quick little hour drive back. But the struggle has been real in the past, especially when I decided to also partake, having full days and still partaking in parties.
Yes. Well, I am taking a half day on Monday.
Smart.
I will see them at 12.
Real smart.
Yeah, because I'm not gonna be able to hold it in the road. I already feel it, and so I prepared myself accordingly.
That's good planning.
Yes.
Look at you,
yes.
Adulting.
Yeah, have to, because I was gonna be on the struggle bus come Monday morning.
Have you seen the meme that's been going around, because it's homecoming season?
Of course.
And there's a meme going around of James Brown.
Oh, Lord. Yes, James. We love James Brown.
We love James. We are huge fans. Despite what y'all think, we love James Brown. Music, personality, all of that stuff. He just left so many gems on earth that a lot of y'all are not aware of. But we love James. But there's this meme going around, and there are 4 pictures of James. And I think it says Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. And first one is James is fly, perm is in place.
Hair laid, fried, dyed, and laid to the side.
Yes, baby. And the next one, he is looking a little more disheveled. And then I think the next one is a mug shot.
Yeah, because they always had James perm not right when he got locked up.
Not they. James, I'm sure.
I don't know if
somebody threw their hand through it.
Yeah, I don't know if they, messed it up when they was putting his head in the car or whatever. But they could have got James' hair right. But I think they did that on purpose because they didn't want him to flourish because his process was the bomb. His process was the bomb. Like, James' hair was it was thick and it had a lot of body, like. Oh my gosh, y'all.
So the meme for Sunday is, because it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and the one for Sunday is his mugshot where he had on the bathrobe, it looked like, or a dashiki. And his hair is all disheveled. And then why is the Monday one him laying in the casket?
Lord,
I don't know who did this, but it's so accurate.
It is. Because you be feeling about dead when you get back, Lord. You just need that one more day to recuperate.
Homecoming season is, what do you like to say, Tommy? A foot?
A foot, honey. It is a foot.
But yeah, that little meme tickled me, so I thought I would share. But yes, so everybody, happy homecoming wherever you are.
Yes.
We do have favoritism, you guys know that, but we're still wishing everybody a happy and a safe homecoming. We would like to send our thoughts and prayers to the students and the victims of the family of the students that were shot and killed at Grambling State University, I think, during their homecoming week. I know that's always hard anytime something so tragic happens on your campus, regardless of what the reasons were. I think the shooter, the last time I checked, was still at large, but I know that's something very traumatic and probably hard to cope with. So our thoughts and prayers are with you, all your students, the faculty, the staff, and of course the families.
Yes.
Yeah, so... But yeah, have a safe and happy homecoming, everybody who has one left.
Yes.
So shout out to the football schools and shout out to the basketball schools.
Yes.
Cheer, because basketball is back.
And we do have turned homecomings just because we may not have, band and football program. We turn up.
Precisely. Okay, so we're going to get right on into it, because I bet y'all are wondering, what y'all talking about this week? Like, what is Tommy and Tasha talking about this week?
I know. This week, I think we're going to go in a little bit about stereotypes with HBCUs.
Yes, stereotypes, misconceptions.
Yes.
Something that we hear a lot of or have heard a lot of in the community, whether it was from other students when we were about to head to an HBCU, or if it was like parents and older people and just their myths. So we're debunking a lot of them today.
Yes.
So yeah, we're gonna we'll hop right into it. But before we do all of that, because a lot of the statements that we'll share are, of course, people's opinions and things that we've heard, and a lot of them are empty and they actually have no proof to go with them. So the little bit, as we debunk them, we'll try to share some statistics that might, kind of hone in on why we just don't think these statements are accurate. So just jumping right into what a lot of people say about HBCUs is that they're party schools.
Yeah, and I mean, you can party, but not necessarily so.
You don't have to. I remember some of the parties that I went to while at Claflin, and they weren't even at other HBCUs. We partied at Winthrop, USC,
College of Charleston,
all over, and it seemed like we were always going out of town to other schools to go to parties.
Exactly.
Now, we did go to some HBCU parties. We've gone up to Benedict for parties, yes. And I think I've been to a party at Allen as well.
I've gone to Sumter to Morris. I've
Yeah.
partied in Sumter and Morris.
However, that's not the main focus, because according to the Princeton Review, not one HBCU was listed on their top 20 party school list.
Not a one. But our beloved University of South Carolina they barely got in there, but they're number 20. But they do get it in the metro. So I see how they made it on there.
See, they made the list. We're just talking South Carolina schools, but look at there. Was there any on there from North Carolina?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I know a couple of Florida schools, the University of Florida in Gainesville.
Of course.
They were number 9. Apparently Penn State is like a party school, and I just find that hard to believe. I don't know why. Never visited there, but just like knowing, I just don't know. I just feel like,
I mean,
I don't know.
Maybe they still, really, really get it in. I don't know.
They may. And I had a cousin that went there, and like, I guess he just wasn't into the party, and so he was just like, I don't know what you're talking about. When I was like, it's a party school? He was like, no.
Well, we don't know exactly what the criteria is for this list. We will say that.
Right.
But there's a school that made it, and it came from the Princeton Review, which is considered a reputable
source.
Yeah.
Yes.
But just to drive our point home, there are no HBCUs on said list, so we move on.
The second thing I would like to touch on is that HBCUs lack diversity.
Where?
Right. I just don't understand that, because I went to school, and just the small school that I went to, it was very diverse, from, West Indian people, people from Africa. We had some Pakistani, Middle Eastern people that we went to school with.
All race, color, creeds.
Right. Everybody. We went to school with everybody. And it just made it a better experience, because you actually kind of got to know these people.
Right.
And their different cultures and, stuff that they do. That's what I loved about meeting, new people from other places, is because that you can really, learn something.
Find more about their culture.
Yeah, because you don't know.
The interesting part about some of these myths is like they're not well thought out, I don't think, because we hear this a lot of places, and we've seen it in articles. There's several that we read even prior to doing this podcast, but to say lack of diversity, like, one, where's your proof? I think almost every school is showing you their numbers. They give you the percentages of what people, go to said school. Additionally, almost every college in America, not just HBCUs, has a foreign exchange program. Right. I know people who went to school with me who participated in it, who went to China, and then vice versa. Their students have come to our school.
Yes.
So we're always exposed to different cultures, diverse people who matriculate with us all 4 years, not just for a semester. So I think that's a huge myth that people, do your research. That's not necessarily true. I think according to the National Center of Educational Statistics, 20% of HBCU enrollment consists of students who are not African American. And so you can fill in the blank with anything other than African American. But yeah, like, that's not necessarily true. And then I remember just kind of like looking over the fence, or being at South Carolina State. They had a pretty diverse
population as well.
Yeah, and a lot of it was sports. Like, interestingly enough, tennis team and
soccer.
Yeah, all of that. That's where you could find some of the diverse students. And they don't only come to play sports. I met people while I was at Claflin who were matriculating there. They weren't related to any sports. It was like, no, this is where I chose to get my education.
Yep.
Yeah, so that is a current myth that's always floating around there.
Yes. The next one is that HBCUs do not prepare you for the real world. And let me tell you something. If they didn't teach me anything else, they didn't have to teach me anything about marketing, advertising, retailing, counting, none of that. They taught me how to deal with being told no, or that you don't have enough financial aid this semester and we're going to drop your schedule And somehow I made it through.
First of all, financial aid and enrollment people must take some sort of training that says, no, don't you be nice to them. You show them how real this world is, because they go hard. They don't break, they don't crack smiles.
They will give you the business. Do you hear me?
And I love it.
I love it because it did prepare me, because my freshman year, I remember calling my mom in tears, like in tears. But she prepared me. She was like, don't worry. I did the same thing when your grandparents dropped me off. I got you.
And I just want to clarify for everybody, we're not saying, because I know also a myth is that like our financial aid whole thing system is a mess. That was not our experience there. What we're saying is they just kept it real. There was no coddling happening. There was like, well, come over here, baby. Let's figure out why you can't get financial aid. What didn't your mom? They don't do all of that. They treat you like the adult that you are.
Right.
And you go figure it out and then come back in their line when you figured it out. Right. Because there's other people that they have to service. And if that's not real world experience.
I'm telling you, if you don't have this stamp, you can't get your book funds.
It's called following directions.
It is. You have to go through the process. And after that first year, guess who was pre-registered every year after that? Me, because I wasn't going through it anymore. I was hip. It didn't take me but one time to come back in tears, because I just didn't know, like, well, what am I supposed to do now? Like, my parents done dropped me off. I got to figure it out.
Right. Yeah.
So.
Well, I tell you one thing. I wasn't in tears per se, but when I left financial aid, when I came back the next semester, or maybe it was the next year, I can't remember which one, but I had this little folder, y'all, that looked like the coupon book. I called it my important paper file.
Yes, and it was yellow, y'all. And I remember it. When I tell you, she used to, I'm going to Tingley, and she used to grab that little folder and I need my important papers file. And she'll go down to Tingley and have all her papers together. Because once we got the important paper file, you're not going to do us at this financial aid.
Listen, tell me that I didn't have a document, and I would go through my files as I stood there and pull it out for you, because I had a copy of everything.
Exactly.
When I left out of the office. Can you make a copy of that for me? If it was going to cost something, change was ready.
Right.
Like, I need a copy of this, because what we're not going to do is pretend like I didn't turn in paperwork.
Exactly.
So I had a whole folder, y'all, and it came in handy for a bunch of other stuff.
I have one now that with my tax information and stuff. It's necessary.
It is. See, real world preparation. Would I have had an important paper file if I hadn't attended HBCU? The verdict's out.
Yeah, I don't know. Probably, but
maybe, but it was earlier. It came earlier. Life-changing.
Yes, but according to the Gallup USA Fund Minority College Graduates Report, 55% of African-American HBCU graduates felt better prepared for life after graduation, as opposed to 29% of African-American non-HBCU graduates.
Ooh. Check those numbers. That's more than half.
It is more than half.
Yeah. Well, no, I felt prepared for the real world, not going to lie. Like, I think everybody has to adjust to being a full-out adult and, like, paying rent and insurance and taxes. Like, I'm still adjusting to that.
Me too.
But
yeah,
I still felt prepared to be adjusting to it.
Right. But we was grown anyway, because we had rent before graduation.
That's true.
So we was trying to be so grown, but
that actually, we weren't trying to be grown. We were being grown, and I'm gonna tell you why. Because what she's talking about is we moved off campus our senior year, and it wasn't necessarily for freedom purposes. It was because we wanted to see a decline in our tuition.
Yes.
And it was cheaper for us to live off campus than it was for us to live on campus. So I feel like that was adulting.
It was the prudent thing for us to do.
Mm-hmm.
It was the prudent thing for us to do.
Yeah, so we have been grown for some time. We've been paying rent since college days.
Yes.
Even though we were splitting it 3 ways.
Yes. I mean, you have to make do.
It's cool. It was a cool apartment too.
It was. They were brand new. Awesome.
Shout out to Toyota Court.
Yes.
Okay, so another misconception is that everybody on HBCU campuses, everybody's woke.
Yeah, I mean, some people are woke, like, or some people wake up. when they get to school. You know,
like Spike Lee told you
yeah,
to.
I got on the bus. I got on the bus when I got to school, but everybody is not woke. I mean, we are very diverse in our thinking. Just because we may share the same hue of skin does not mean that, you know, we all think the same.
That's true.
So, and it is a very diverse place, diverse place as far as mentality.
Right.
Because everybody, you know, matures at a different rate.
And I think that's the core of it too, mentality. When it comes to, I guess, being woke, because a lot of people are using the woke term as in politics and being, you know, socially active and all that kind of stuff, but it is a mindset, because you have people who have been first generation college students, or their parents maybe didn't go to college, or they maybe come from a family where nobody even voted before. So mentality wise, we're all over the place on the campus. And then you have people who come from families where somebody may have been in the political system. Dad is a judge or a lawyer or something like that, and they're very aware of how things work. So the thinking there is very different for everybody. Eventually, I think we all come to a place where we are able to dissect the information that is given to us and process it for ourselves. Yes. Because I think that really is what being woke is about. You get information and you just don't take it at face value. You go a step further and know why this information is pertinent, why this information applies to you, how it applies to you, what you can do to help, what you can do to hinder, whether that is referring to the political system or social issues or whatever it is. So I think everybody kind of develops being woke. And one of the things I think the reasons people say that particular thing is because it's an HBCU and they assume that everybody there, we're just on pro-black everything. Now, our school, we were required to take African-American heritage. Yes. Which I loved, because in high school, that was something that we didn't get. So I loved learning about all of the history. Yes. Not just about our school, but of the great people throughout the nation who went to HBCUs. I'm going to go ahead and say that. I can say that. And if they didn't go to school, they were just amongst here, but they probably went to an HBCU because that was the only choice they had. But I loved learning about all of those individuals while at Claflin.
Of course. Like, it is very important, because how do you know where you're going if you don't know where you've been?
Right. Absolutely.
So you do need to know your history, and it is sad that a lot of black history gets lost in translation. You know, that people is not published and is not taught to everybody, because it's not black history, it's history, period. So
absolutely. Well, luckily everybody out here, you don't have to go to an HBCU to be woke. You have the internet and libraries and access to anything you want to learn these days. So that's a blessing.
It is. That is.
What else do a misconception that we hear about HBCUs? Like,
they're saying that they lack rigor. And
there's no to that. That's not true.
It's not.
I'm gonna say it's not true because it's unproven. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can't make such a blanket statement. That means that you have valid research and you've gone to every HBCU,
studies have shown.
Right, and you've gone to every other school in the nation to see which ones are more rigorous and which ones aren't. So I think that is a blanket statement, but I wonder why it is that people think that because it's a historically black college, which again is just a designation that I like to point out, because for some reason we get HBCUs and we kind of pocket them in this place like they're not a part of the overall university system.
Academia.
Yeah. Right. And it is, and it's just a designation, meaning that these schools were founded to educate black people historically.
Yes.
So why is our rigor being, brought
questioned?
Why is that being brought into play?
Because I feel like I received one of the best educations that I could have paid for, because it wasn't
It wasn't easy.
It sure wasn't. Many a nights I stayed up stressed. Look, ain't been to sleep. Got to jump up and take this final or this midterm or type this paper.
Exactly.
It wasn't easy at all.
And college is hard. I mean, for rigor to be brought into question when it comes to HBCUs, I think is crazy, because if we're just talking about Southern schools, we all have to be accredited by the same body.
Exactly.
SACS has to accredit all of these schools. So if all of us fall within SACS accreditation, what makes you think that
your curriculum is better than
ours? Right, precisely. So yeah, and then in addition to that, like, we have tons of doctors, dentists, lawyers, all of that, who have been serving this nation. Probably has been one of your doctors who probably graduated from a Meharry or a Morehouse Medical College
or Howard Law, Howard Dental,
FAMU,
yes.
School of Law. Like, we have just any school out here, or, you know, from a Payne College or a Morris College. Like, we have people here who are in the medical field, maybe your nurse. Like, so
right.
If the rigor is questionable, how is everybody out here still getting employed? Like, how sway?
And I know a lot of PhDs that come from HBCUs.
Yeah.
A lot of PhDs. I want to say they said like 20% of all PhDs, they pretty much started from.
Well, according to the National Center of Educational Statistics, HBCUs produced 70% of all African American doctors, 42% of all agricultural science degrees, 31% of all biological science degrees, and 31% of all mathematics degrees.
I just want to clap it up for the mathematics degrees, because God bless you all, because my word, I hate math. It's never been my strong suit, and I thought I was picking a different major when I got to school because I didn't want to take math. But they only just called it accounting and statistics. I still had to take it, so the joke was on me. So
gotcha.
But math is hard. It's super hard. So anybody who has an advanced degree in math, I tip my hat.
There's a bunch of amazing minds out here. We recently had Sherry Miller, who was on the podcast, and she graduated from Clark Atlanta, and her mathematics was her degree, and she loves it. She just loves everything that has to do with math, I think, and engineering.
Yes.
So,
I can't do it.
Yeah, shout out to y'all.
Right, because I was stressed when I had to take algebra and stuff. Stressed
out. Another misconception, what we'll say, is that HBCUs are all ghetto.
You ghetto.
This one is interesting because I don't know if this was it's a myth. It's not true in totality is what I will say. But I would not say HBCUs as an institution are ghetto. I think that's the wrong thing to say.
They may be located
in a part of town that is referred to as the ghetto.
Yes, it's near. Yeah, it's near the ghetto, or the hood, as people would call it. But right. I guess when they were chartering land for schools, mm-hmm. for especially black schools back in the 1800s.
Right. We didn't really have choices. A lot of the people who founded it were missionaries and all that kind of stuff, so it wasn't necessarily the choice to us. Right. And I'm not sure. And then more than likely what has happened, and we're gonna get somebody on here who's definitely a historian, because I would love to, chit chat with them and talk more about, how these schools have evolved over time. But more than likely the individuals who worked at the schools probably lived near the schools and probably graduated from the schools and probably built homes near the schools, right. The educators and all of that. And usually you probably want to be in close proximity to where you worked or lived, or were being educated and what have you. So I mean, it's partially true, but I mean, these are our neighborhoods regardless, and right. to call an institution overall ghetto because of a location, I
Right.
That ain't necessary. That's not
being
necessary.
very closed-minded.
Yeah, you are. And I mean, neighborhoods a lot of times are just neighborhoods. Like,
Exactly.
there are a few schools, well, actually not even schools, there are businesses that I go to and places that I go to that aren't always in the best neighborhoods, but that doesn't deter me from going to the place. Like,
to being a patron.
Right. And
business,
I mean,
right.
It happens. It's the world that we live in.
It
but
is.
That's not the case for all HBCUs.
It's
there
not.
are some schools that have got so much land and are in nowhere near another home or a neighborhood. Let's
Right.
just be real. I don't think, if you make that comment, you obviously haven't seen a lot of the HBCUs that we had that are out there. Like Fort
Right.
Valley State University, just land on land on land.
Yes, I know Alcorn is in West Egypt, that you have to go, like, travel some
Some
so-
distance, and so everything isn't like close up and right in the neighborhood. So yeah, that's a yes and a no.
Yeah.
And then as far as the people, I'll say yes and no. Like, you get all types of people,
Right, from different
from
backgrounds.
different backgrounds,
Different strokes.
upbringing.
Yeah, different strokes for different folks.
And that's the beauty.
Right. That's the beauty of college in itself. Like, you go to college and you meet these different people because it is people from everywhere, all walks of life, that you may not have been exposed to before.
Exactly. And I'll just say, just going to school in South Carolina, of course, we grew up in upstate South Carolina, and we were not super familiar with a lot of people from the lower state. And when we got to Claflin, we became more familiar with individuals from the lower state.
Yes.
And meeting people from Charleston, and meeting some people who had Geechee Gullah culture, accents, all that
Yes.
kind of stuff. So I think that's like the beauty of going to an HBCU, all the people that you meet. And we even went to school with people who came from Milwaukee. Like, what are you doing here?
Right. How did you find out?
We had a friend who came from Alaska.
Yes.
Connecticut. Like, there were people from everywhere, and I'm sure it was more of a culture shock to them than it was to us.
Right.
But still, like, ghetto, no. It's just a melting pot of just awesome people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much.
I think so.
I do too.
It makes you want to go and see where they're from. And a lot of people did that when they were at school.
Mm-hmm.
We're like, oh, you're from here for, fall break. I'm going home. Well, I want to go with you. You know,
Right.
I want to see where you're from. I've had a few people come on up to the big city of Greer
Yes.
to visit.
We've had people in Greer. I've been to Lake City. Like, I used to love Lake City. Shouts out to Rosa.
Shout out to Lake City.
Yes.
Hey, Rosa.
Because I stayed at Rosa Mama house.
Ball breaks.
Yes, fall break.
So, and then that's the only thing that I'm really can think about. But as far as misconceptions, but just some of the pluses of going to an HBCU, we can get into, like,
Yes. Like the faculty interaction.
Yes.
Like, the faculty interaction is the bomb.
It's unmatched.
It is, because my professors were the bomb. Not only were they make sure they informed us and had us ready, they were a very diverse group of people.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say in the Department of Business, in the School of Business rather, that I only had one black professor. And I want to say that was Miss Davis. I want to say, yeah. Everybody else, Dr. Greenwald, Dr. Hassan, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, faculty interaction at HBCUs is unmatched. Like, we love to point out, not we love to, but a lot of people like to point out, what they perceive to be, cons related to, myths related to, or sometimes they believe to be facts related to HBCUs.
Yes.
But one of the things that I think, regardless of where you go to school, at an HBCU, your faculty interaction, like I said, is unmatched. Like, HBCU faculty, no matter where they're from, is something about the culture of an HBCU that lets wherever this professor, from wherever they're from, they just kind of like get in line, and they bring their nurturing spirit and their helpful spirit and their energy
Or
and
not.
positivity, or not, to
Or
the
not.
campus, but you
Right.
show your love and your encouragement in different ways. Some people are hard on you, and that's the way to
Yes.
best build you. Some people are nurturing. Some people will want to see you after class and tell you a little bit more. Whatever it was, I think it all worked in the grand scheme, because I've heard that across the board from different people. And I will say, as far as my professors, I thought they were all awesome. Like, to this day, I still have a relationship with my professors. Just the other day, I spoke to one. She reached out to me, asked me would I speak to her class about this podcast. And I was like, of course. So, I mean, that just goes to show you how close-knit HBCU relationships are. I graduated 11 years ago, and I'm still in contact with a professor of mine who is still keeping in contact with what I'm doing,
Exactly.
in order to still build upon what she's teaching. And this was a social media class in Mass Comm.
In that aspect, I do feel like we were coddled.
You think so?
I do, because I feel like the one-on-ones that you get with the professors, I feel like they're not getting that at USC. I know it's too many.
Well,
of
I
them.
wouldn't call it coddling, because
Not coddling, but just more hands-on.
we were more blessed than others,
Right.
is all we'll say, because they have the same options as well.
Yes.
It's up to them. They have to probably try a little bit harder.
Yeah.
Because they, just like them, our professors had office hours. It was some people who did not want you to walk up to them after class to talk. No, I have office hours for that. So
Right.
I'm not saying everybody was super sweet, like, oh yes, Natasha, I want to talk to you right now. No, I have office hours and you can see me then. But it was up to you on whether or not you wanted to build upon that relationship. For me personally, I went to see all of my professors because of the field that I was going into. It was media, it was public relations, writing, and for that, it's all about relationships. For what you know, if you know anything about that business, it's about who you know. And I was developing my relationships while I was there, not only with students but also with professors, so that later in life they could benefit me or not, or
Right.
whatever the case may be. So I think it's up to you to form relationships with people. But a relationship, there are other people who were in my major who don't have the same, they went through the same time as me, and they don't have these same relationships. So it's up to you as a person.
What do you choose to do with it?
Absolutely.
Right. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. I'm
This is
telling
true.
you.
So, I mean, that's one of the aspects, though. But what I was trying to drive home is that at HBCUs, I think all of the faculty are always open to that. You know, they're never turning you away when they see that you're trying to build rapport, get help, whatever the case may be. And like I said, it's not always the sweet and wrapped up in a bow type help. And sometimes you didn't always get the help.
Right.
It's not always 50% yes. 100% yes when you go there. Like, it's 50-50.
Yeah.
So
It just depends, because it may be 50-50 in real life. Like, they really do give you the business.
you could get a no in real life. So I love that about going to an HBCU. So another myth that we can probably debunk is, I've often heard that the graduates aren't as employable but marketable, I guess, to employers as students who may have gone elsewhere. And I think that's totally a myth, because I know people who work everywhere.
Right.
And again, I think that kind of like just piggybacks on to what I was saying about you making the effort.
The rigor.
Yeah.
The rigor of your academic.
Not necessarily the rigor. It's about making the effort. Like, you can go through a program and get all A's. Nobody really cares about your GPA. Like, that's one of the things people forget to tell you after high school is over. No one cares, bruh.
They don't.
So it's up to you to pull together a resume, make sure that you're getting internships so that you can get placed somewhere that you would like to. But I don't, that's one of the things I totally don't agree with.
Why wouldn't they be why wouldn't we be employable? Like, we went to school, we learned, I've received a degree. It may be the same one as, someone else that went to a PWI, but like, what makes it different? Like, what makes, just because I went to Claflin and you went to Ohio State, like what makes it different because you went to a Division I school, but then that goes into sports. So like it really makes no difference.
Well, we have individuals from HBCU or HBCU graduates almost everywhere in the world. So, like at major companies, Procter and Gamble, Amazon, Google, like
Microsoft.
the list goes
Right.
on. So, for that, again, that's a myth that we're debunking, and it's crazy to say because what would today's workforce be without Black people or diversity,
Right.
or whatever. So a lot of these companies, they actually come specifically to HBCUs for diversity hires. They're coming to and pulling together job fairs where they're recruiting specifically diverse students. So to say that, or for people to assume that we're not employable, that's kind of crazy, because no, your top companies are out here looking for students just
Exactly.
like our students. So that's definitely one of the myths that keeps kind of floating around out there. So don't believe the hype people. If you're a high school student or someone who is listening to this podcast, and we hope that you are, we just want to bring these kind of myths up and share them with you, because there's a lot of things, if you don't do your research, you could fall into in line thinking these things just because you've heard other people say them, and they're not necessarily true. There's so much more out there that you can learn, and if you hear someone saying these things, go look it up on your own. Go find out. Like, just don't take it at face value. If we would have only listened to the things that were told to us, we never would have ended up at Claflin, because in high school, did we have counselors that were pushing
No.
our HBCUs
Or HBCUs at all in general? No. But we did have staff and administrators that pushed us, but not, as far as the counselors or the guidance counselors.
Yeah, and that's one of the things we would love for. If you're in counseling, hit us up, a school counselor or something like that. Hit us up and tell us what you're doing out there to make sure that more students from your particular high school are ending up at HBCUs, because us just being a part of, in South Carolina, but we lived in the upstate area, and if you're familiar with Greenville, Spartanburg, Greenwood, all of that, of course there are no HBCUs in the area, but what we do have is Clemson and Furman and Wofford and
Converse College.
All of these colleges that, of course, probably have a lot of graduates that still live in the area, and some of those graduates were probably some of our counselors, and those
teachers.
Yes, and those were the schools that they were pushing, and so it begs the question, and again, if you're out there and you're in counseling, do share with us what you're doing, but it begs the question is, are these schools being represented when it comes down to the conversation? And I don't just mean to Black students either, because that's also one of those things that's like, no, don't do that. We still got choices.
Yes.
I would love for you to go to a HBCU, but don't only offer me HBCUs.
Exactly.
Offer all of the colleges, just to be fair. If there's a list of colleges, make sure you're a South Carolina counselor or a Louisiana counselor or Georgia counselor listing all of the schools that are available. Because again, like I said, while we were in high school, I only saw the ones, or only heard about the ones that the counselors attended or were in this area.
Exactly.
And we had to do further research to find out about the HBCUs that were out there.
Exactly.
Well, you guys, we're going to wrap it up.
Yes.
We thank you again for listening to yet another episode of the HBCU podcast.
Don't forget to hit us up via email, thehbcupodcast@gmail.com, and on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at the HBCU Podcast.
Yes, thank you guys. Talk to you next time.
All right. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. We have so much more HBCU content on the way, so make sure you subscribe to the podcast, rate the podcast, and visit us at thehbcupodcast.com. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Twitter at the HBCU Podcast. Like us on Facebook. I love you for listening. Until next time.